The Nintendo Switch is heading into its twilight years, but there still are a number of big missing Nintendo Switch games that we need to give updates on. But I want to make sure that I'm very clear about the direction of this video, so we aren't talking about anything that's already been confirmed. 2024, we know about The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Mario and Luigi Brothership, and of course I did a whole video right here where it goes over some of the best upcoming games that you guys can check out for everything that's confirmed. We also know for 2025 that there's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Pokemon Legends ZA, and the probable, this is speculative on my part, but the probable launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 with a new 3D Mario game, new Mario Kart, maybe a new Monolith Soft title that they are cooking up based off of information that is out there. So in this video, we're going to be going over a lot of the previous rumored games that are missing that had good sources attached to them, and it's into some ones that were kind of head scratching why it's not on the Nintendo Switch considering the system's success. But before we get into all that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more first as soon as they drop. Now let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to get into what everyone has been talking about. I literally get questions on this daily on my live streams that you guys should make sure that you check out, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you can see our lives pretty much every single day here on the channel, 6 p.m. Eastern time. But let's talk about this when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD and The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. And I won't spend too much time on these because this is something that we've already made multiple videos on. Pretty much every single Nintendo content creator has talked about these. Where are they at? Hey, they're going to come. Hey, there's some rumors, there's some information, blah, blah, blah. We've seen it all the time when it comes to both of these games. But what exactly happened to them? Well, I do think that there's probably a couple things, and this is something that probably nobody else has brought up, but I will bring it up, and I do think that it's a possibility. Because if you look at the Legend of Zelda series, the Legend of Zelda has never done as well as it's done in any era when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom have knocked out the previous games when it comes to sales overall, and I do feel that Nintendo did not want to mess with that flow when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and the specific remakes and re-releases that they already did. They didn't want to overload it when it comes to the Zelda games, so I do think that they spaced them out, and I think that as time went on, it was almost potentially, this is once again speculation, potentially like a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe situation to where it was just doing so well and selling so well, and they already had certain games planned, that The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker essentially just kept on getting pushed and pushed and pushed, despite probably already being done. Now we're going to talk about a series with Metroid Prime in just a bit, but we saw that with Metroid Prime Remastered. That game was done about a year or so before the release, and it was kind of just sitting there, and then they decided, okay, now we're going to release the game. So I do feel that Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD could have fell victim to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom just doing absolutely incredible, on top of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening doing very good for an older remake of a Game Boy title, selling about 7 million copies. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword about 4 million plus copies. I think that did beat the original Nintendo Wii version, which isn't necessarily hard to do. Obviously, Nintendo Switch games do better than Wii titles. But yeah, I do think that it's because of these games, but specifically with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom selling 50 plus million copies combined and continuing to sell even a year plus with Tears of the Kingdom, and 6 years, 7 years plus with Breath of the Wild, continuing to sell hundreds of thousands of units even after launch. So I think that's just what's happening here, and I do feel that it's going to transition to the next system. I do think that at this point it's possible that it still comes out on the Nintendo Switch before the next system, but I'm leaning more towards it being a dual launch where it is on the Nintendo Switch and it's on the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo probably does a double pack, and if you buy it on the Nintendo Switch 2, you essentially get better resolution, you get better frame rates, you get better quality overall, and that's going to be a big push because they're not going to have a brand new Zelda game game ready. So that's going to be a big push for people to buy the new system, because now you can play both of these in better quality and better loading time and all of that. So I'm guessing that's what their plan is going to be for The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD and The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. Now we're going to get into the next thing here, and this is more of like, why is it not on there considering the popularity of the Switch? And that's the Fallout series. Now, with the Fallout TV show on Amazon doing absolutely incredible, I actually like the TV show more than I like the video games at this point. And people are wondering, wait a minute, why didn't Fallout 3 come? Why didn't Fallout 4? Why didn't these come over? Because these are on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 with Fallout 3. Obviously, Fallout 4 is an Xbox One and up game. So what happened there? So I do think with Fallout, it was one of those things to where these games are crusty. I mean, these games are just crusty on that engine that Bethesda is using. On top of that, you look at it when they got purchased by Microsoft, obviously a shift in focus. It's no longer looking at all the platforms in a certain type of way. It's kind of looking at what you're only supporting. And there's a lot of different things that are happening, a lot of logistics. So the Nintendo Switch just never really was a priority for them outside of the first couple of games they put out on there. There was Wolfenstein, there was Skyrim, there was Doom, there was some Bethesda stuff, but there really wasn't much planned too much after that. And then of course with the Microsoft purchase, I do feel that it just ended up being, there's no need for us to do it. Fallout is going to have this TV show. They're obviously doing Fallout 76. That's making them money now at this point. It was a flop at the beginning, but now it actually has a dedicated base of people paying and people playing the game. So what's the point of even having a Nintendo Switch version that probably isn't going to run or look that good, because they're not going to put a lot of time or effort into it. So I think that's just what happened with Fallout. Things just got in the way and it ended up just not happening. I do feel that with the Nintendo Switch 2, you have a more capable system, that the Fallout series could make its way in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully one of the main Fallout games makes its way to the Nintendo Switch with Fallout 3, Fallout 4, and whatever else they're going to do in the future, but just not so sure with Microsoft and Bethesda at this point. Now, next up, we're going to talk about some Dark Souls, because we did get the original Dark Souls remaster game on the Nintendo Switch, and from what I understand, it sold over 1 million units. Bandai Namco obviously very happy with that, and there was rumors that Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 are going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch. So what happened to those games? So Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, for those who don't remember, those games were a bit rough when it comes to how they ran and everything, which From Software, obviously, they do as good a job as they can, but a lot of times there's definitely some frame rate issues, some things that happen with these games. They're not really buggy and glitchy too much, just sometimes not necessarily the best optimized for every single platform, especially Dark Souls 2 on the Xbox 360. I remember playing it back in the day, and I do think that they essentially probably ran into issues when it comes to optimization and when it comes to really just having the determination and effort to put into the game. I think that maybe they were probably planning it out and thinking, okay, well, let's just see how things go. And yes, 1 million units at probably discounted and all that is okay, but it probably wasn't enough for Bandai Namco and From Software to even say, okay, here we go, let's really invest into it. Now, if Dark Souls Remastered did crazy good, like maybe like 3-4 million copies or something like that, I do think that it would have been more possible to get a bigger investment. But I think that, of course, From Software, they don't really care at this point. They're doing their Elden Ring thing at the time. They're doing a bunch of other stuff. They're doing their Sekiro thing. They're doing all sorts of other stuff. They're not really worried about the Nintendo Switch. They're just worried about creating whatever they needed to create at the time. Because remember, we're going back to 2018 here with Dark Souls Remastered. And of course, Bandai Namco is looking at it from a financial perspective and saying, okay, but do we really need to invest more resources into this? We can potentially invest those resources porting some other games to the Nintendo Switch, maybe that more fans would like Dragon Ball Z or like One Piece or some of the other things that they've put out late after it comes out on Xbox and PlayStation. So I do think that's what happened with Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. And I think specifically Dark Souls 3 would have been very tough to bring over. Once again, would have taken a lot of time and a big investment. And I'm just not sure if they thought that they would get that return on the investment after the initial sales with Dark Souls Remastered. But once again, that's speculation on my part because these games just disappeared. But we did have some good rumors from solid sources that this would be happening on the Nintendo Switch. So let's see if something happens on the Nintendo Switch 2 with Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, maybe even Elden Ring. There's some rumors and some hype that could potentially happen on the Nintendo Switch 2. I think Elden Ring would be awesome, and obviously the Nintendo Switch 2 should be able to easily handle any game that came out on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So I do think that it will be a better system for them to port games over to. I don't think that From Software themselves would be handling the port, but of course Bandai Namco, the publishers, would be handling that. So let's move into the next thing here, guys, and it's a first-party game, getting back into that, and that's Metroid Prime 2 Echoes and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, because these games were rumored as far back as 2018. I made videos myself from sources that were out there saying that this was going to happen. Everyone knows that Jeff Grubb and what was happening there, saying that, yeah, look, Metroid Prime Remastered, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, they're all coming. Nintendo dropped that bombshell at the Nintendo Direct in early 2023 where they showed off that Metroid Prime Remastered is coming, and it's a shadow drop, which was very exciting for gamers out there. It was really cool to see that. So we all felt, okay, well, now they shadow drop this, it's real, it's actually happening, and this is one of the best quality games on the Nintendo Switch, one of the best looking games, and it's a GameCube game overall. So I wonder what Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are going to be like. Then there was other rumors saying, hey, look, it's not necessarily going to be a remastered version of Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. It's going to be more of just like a port of it. So kind of like Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2, it was probably going to be something like that. So then people are like, okay, well, even if it is something like that, give us that in a double pack for 40 bucks or whatever they're going to charge, 50 bucks, and that will be fine too. People just want to be able to play Metroid Prime 2 Echoes and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption on the Nintendo Switch. And then time just kept on going by and kept on going by and kept on going by. And we haven't got it yet at this point. So what happened to it? Well, I do think that these two games will probably be announced sometime this year or early next year. Now, just like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I don't know if those are going to be cross-gen type of things, just backwards compatible. But I do think that they will be announced just because there's a few reasons for this. That Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, that game is slated for 2025. So if you want to have the lead up into that, I think that'd be pretty cool if Nintendo just shadow drops these games. Hey, you can get them in a bundle, then there's going to be a physical edition that you can buy later down the line. If they did that just like Metroid Prime Remastered, I think people would be completely fine with that. But I do think that it's still going to happen because of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is set, slated, locked in 2025 on the Nintendo Switch. Now we need to see what they do with Nintendo Switch 2, but it's confirmed to be a Nintendo Switch game. So Nintendo's probably going to want everyone to be able to play Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 before Metroid Prime 4, because there's going to be a lot of new fans that have never played Metroid Prime before but want to get into it at this point, or never played Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, never had access to it, or just didn't play it back then, and now they can play it at this point. So I do think that those will be announced very soon here, sometime this year. I do think that we're going to get a shadow drop, or we're going to get an announcement for Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. So hopefully we can look forward to that. We've been saying that for years now here on the channel, so I hope like 10th time's a charm here now. Now moving on to the next games, we got some of the Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy 9 Remake. These are two games that were on the Nvidia leak years ago. There were other games that were also on that leak from Square Enix that have came out at this point, and also other games too. So these two games, where are they at? Well, I do feel that Square Enix had a big shakeup with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16, probably not putting up the numbers that Square Enix would have hoped for. Not that they're necessarily bad, with Final Fantasy 16 being a PlayStation 5 exclusive and everything, but they have decided that they are going to aggressively pursue multi-platform development, that they're really going to make sure that when they make their big AAA games, that it's going to be on all platforms. I did see that as more of like, hey, we need to make sure that we support Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch 2 is coming up, so it's probably more geared towards that, and also Xbox as well. So I do feel that their slumping sales, combined with obviously what fans are saying, I think it's a combination of that. And I think that these two games might have been caught in the crossfire when it comes to what Square Enix is doing and the complete retool, the new president completely revamping everything. So they could be making it for more platforms. They could be upping the quality of it. They could be waiting for Nintendo Switch 2 to have a launch on all platforms at the same time. There's probably a variety of different circumstances and situations that have happened to both of these games to why we haven't got a release date yet at this point, but I do feel that yes, both of these games are still coming. Final Fantasy Tactics is still coming. I do believe, based off of sources that are out there, based off some stuff that I've heard as well, that Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy IX Remake are still set to come out. Now, the platforms and where it's going to be and all that, who knows at this point? We just don't know, but I do think that it's the right call for them to make sure, if they're taking extra time to make sure that these are one, high quality when it comes to a PS1 re-release of a game, HD port of a game, and of course a remake of one of the best Final Fantasy games of all time, you need to make sure that you get this done right. And if you're having a lot of internal strife and turmoil, now's not the time to be releasing a bunch of stuff when you're shuffling and shifting things around, and especially if you're not implementing a lot of your new strategies like multi-platform development, aggressive multi-platform development for AAA type of games and everything. I do think that, yeah, you got to make sure that you know exactly what's happening with it. So I do feel that these games are coming as well. So we're going to have to wait and see. But I would expect Final Fantasy Tactics or Final Fantasy IX Remake at some point within the next year. So from now until next year, I think we'll hear about one of these games or both of these games. And I do think that they want to take advantage of the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. That could also be part of it. Now, the last game that we're going to talk about here is a PlayerEssence certified classic. I actually made a video about it recently, and that's Fire Emblem 4 Remake, Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, the game that never came over to the US from Japan or Europe. It's a Japan exclusive Super Famicom. What's happening with this game? We've been hearing about it. Nate the Hate told us about it years ago. I've been talking about it years ago, and I honestly feel, I don't know exactly what's happening with this game. Apparently, it's sitting on the shelf finished. Nintendo has a plethora of games that are potentially just sitting on the shelf finished as they really get their plans ready for Nintendo Switch 2. Will this be just on the Nintendo Switch with backwards compatibility for Switch 2? Are they making a Switch 2 version, planning to do a dual release or a dual launch within the first year? I do think that Nintendo does put Fire Emblem in high regard. They always want to have a new Fire Emblem game out sometime relative to the beginning of the system's life within the first year or so. They don't want to wait too long. So if you have a big Fire Emblem 4 remake, or even if they decided to make this game even a bit bigger than maybe what we thought it was going to be, there's probably a plethora of reasons why they have not announced Fire Emblem 4 remake yet, but it probably is the whole Metroid Prime situation where it's just kind of sitting there and they're waiting as their release lineup. They've already been publishing a lot of games this year, nothing really massive hitters. And Fire Emblem 4 Remake wouldn't be a massive game. I don't think it'd sell as much as, like, let's say Fire Emblem Three Houses, for example. But I do think that it would do better than Fire Emblem Engage, since this is a game that is, one, never came over to the US, and two, it has a lot of the things that made the newer Fire Emblem games very fun to play and why people like them. A lot of those ideas were birthed in this game, and it has one of the craziest, most mature stories that Fire Emblem has ever had. One of the saddest ones as well overall if you look at it, but there's so many cool things and so many different advanced gameplay mechanics that are built into the Fire Emblem 4 base game on the Super Nintendo that I do think that people would be very interested in playing Fire Emblem 4 Remake. So we're gonna have to wait and see what Nintendo's planning to do with this game as well. Maybe it's going to be cross-gen type of game to kind of fill out the Nintendo Switch 2's lineup, but then also support the Nintendo Switch. Maybe it's going to be an early 2025 release with an announcement later this year. We just have to wait and see on that. But the wild card here is Nintendo Switch 2. We just don't know how Nintendo wants to plan certain games and if they want to have them dual launch or backwards compatibility with patches. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we just don't know, and it really throws a wrench into potential plans of certain launches for games depending on the profile of the game. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But what are your thoughts here, guys, when it comes to the big missing Nintendo Switch games and the updates that I gave for you guys? My thoughts on everything. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch and RPG videos right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.